Aloha, everyone. Definitely excited to be here. Thank you for taking some time out of your morning to spend it with me and hear my thoughts on simplicity and how much it's recently impacted my life. Um, so, yeah, thank you for being here. We have such a great community here in Hawaii that supports creatives and entrepreneurs and all the wonderful, talented locals we have here. And I'm very grateful to be a part of that community. So I'm here in gratitude for your support. And yeah, I'm just going to present from a very whole state, which I'll talk about. So let's get this going. All right. I when I think about simplicity, the first thing that comes to mind is peace, peace of mind. When things are simple, they go smooth, and when things are smooth, I usually am able to avoid a lot of stressful situations or overthinking projects or my work. And um, when I have a peace of mind, I feel like that's when I create my most beautiful works, or when I create from wholeness, um, that's where I thrive in how I communicate visually. Simplicity to me has always put me in a state of mind for flow, and allowing that flow to come, being inspired, has I've been able to see a lot more opportunities, make wiser decisions in my design work, and come up with some pretty creative things. Um, so talking about that, my work is pretty simple. It's flat 2D organization of shapes and color to hopefully achieve harmony and to communicate, you know, my voice and what I stand for and my different perspectives on life here in Hawaii, some of my experiences, and being able to channel that into my work. And I definitely need a clear mind for a lot of that. I need a clear headspace. And in today's world, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of noise coming from our platforms. Sometimes my daily routine involves waking up and just getting right on Instagram, scrolling along, trying to process so much information at the crack of dawn that the day starts. We're just filling my mind with um, just content and screens or different parts of the day, and then it gets real cluttered sometimes. So we'll talk about this clutter and how we can, two different ways that we can clear it and achieve, that space we need to create from wholesomeness. So my work, I started out simple because I come from, my background of art is graffiti. So as a kid, I grew up painting graffiti. I love that culture and that medium. It was very freeing for me as a kid to run around with my friends and explore the mountains and try to find different walls and be under bridges. And my taste for street art and art style was always all over the place. I love one artist and their style. I love this artist. So when it came time for me to decide to do art full time, I knew I was self-aware to know that I'm all over the place with my taste and what I liked and what I enjoyed, and I couldn't make a decision on coming up with like a signature style. And so I had to make the decision to, okay, let's just keep it simple so we can just start. We just need to start. I danced around the idea for way too long, and let's just make it easy for now, and we'll grow into a more complex art style. And so that's what I did. I chose to do 5 paintings of a similar style, where I took simple patterns and shapes and color and combined them to create what I do today. And that decision has turned into a career of really amazing opportunities and experiences where I could share my work, grow, develop, find my voice. Um, and it was all from just starting off simply, you know? And that's, there's a lot of different examples of how deep we can go by just being simple. You know, a lot of times we overestimate and think that it needs to be complex. It needs to be hard for it to be genius or intellectual or to mean something. Or when a lot of times the most simplest solutions can solve very hard tasks or creative problem solving. You know, it's usually the simple solutions that is the right solution. And some of the examples of simplicity and going deep I pulled up to show how simple communication was in ancient times. Communicating with humans is probably one of the most complex things. And back in ancient times, we used petroglyphs and symbols to communicate stories of voyages of our ancestors and their practices and their daily lives. In New Zealand, there's tamoko, which is tattoo, and a lot of those times the tattoos will tell the genealogy of your family or different stories. And another part of my heritage is from Norway, and so all the symbolism there, communication between humans was once very simple. And I would be a pretty, you know, I'd excel scholarly and in academics in this age because they're picture books. You know, that's my type of reading. Um, I would definitely, you know, read a lot more if life was like that. But for me, it is. You know, we still communicate with symbols and images, whether it's branding, whether it's design and communication, and that's where I thrive. So a lot of these deep stories and mo'olelos and Native Hawaiian culture that we have here is, you know, we can see it in some of our petroglyphs or the tattoos we have and different cultural aspects. Another form of simplicity is done by one of my favorite artists, which is Mark Rothko. And of course, I'm a big fan of color theory and emotion and what you can, and the emotions you can draw from combining colors and their relationships. And I think about simple as like, well, these are real simple paintings. They're just three colors in squares on a canvas. I never really understood that as a kid or in my younger years in my careers, because I'm like, it's so simple. Why is it worth $86.8 million? You know, and I think sometimes that dollar amount will distract us from what he really did. And there's a phenomenon that occurs when that occurred when Mark Rothko would paint his paintings, where he would remove all the white from the canvas and place colors that would provoke emotion. And I've been able to be lucky enough to sit in front of one of his large paintings in a museum. And when you immerse yourself in these colors and just these three simple squares, there's an experience that you have. And you don't quite know how to describe it or put your finger on it, but it takes you to a place of whatever emotion would come at that time. And for me, when I was watching it, when I was just immersed in the painting, it was some darker hues and blues, and I just remember feeling sad or like in a little bit of a state of like depressive, you know, depressed emotions. And I thought about, well, I wonder if that's what he was feeling during this time of his life when he's communicating these colors. And my day was fine. Everything in my life was going pretty well. So it was cool to see that difference of how simple the relationships of colors and how you use them can provoke deeper thought and meaning. And that's what I strive for in my work. You know, I wanted to create a body of work that's simple, that's easy to digest, but also can go a little bit deeper with some of the narratives behind it and the subject matters that I choose to use. Um, this is a really important part in my lifetime, in my career, my process of becoming an artist. A lot of my life I've experimented with so many different styles, pushed my limits, and tried my best to do hard things or real technical things just to know that I had that confidence there and that I could do it. Um, by the guess, if you can guess who this would represent, um, that means I did a pretty decent job. But does anyone know who this might be? There we go. All right, perfect. So I did do somewhat of a good job in representing Johnny Cash. And why this means so much to me is it was a study in an oil painting class, and it was something I've never done before. Is try to paint from realism or in a hyper realistic medium or form with oil paints. So I learned how to use oils, and then I learned all the different parts of the planes and the shapes of the face, all of that. And for me, this was like a check and balance for me on my confidence. Is that I know that I could do something hard. You know, there's totally so many things that I would change and see now. Of course, if you're an artist or a creative, you'll see your work and be like, oh, I can change this or that. But a lot of times it doesn't need changes. You know, the first 30% of what you do is good enough sometimes. You know, sometimes we'll overcomplicate a piece with adding too many lines on top. We always want to do 100%. Sometimes I want to do 130%. So overanalyzing things and keep touching it, that's just a habit from us artists. And so for me, this was just something that I was very proud of, that I knew I could do something difficult to where then I could come backwards. You know, there's a quote by Einstein that he says, if you could take the complex and make it simple, that's genius. And so this was my goal here with this specific painting, was to do something hard so that I can come backwards and then start on a new slate, understanding principles of design that I learned from this, which then led me to create visual representations of other figures in a very simple way. The contrast of the two is obvious. And so does someone know who this represents on the left? Anyone? The Duke, right? Duke Hanamoku. I often share that he's one of my heroes, and he is. And I've learned that, you know, iconic figures, iconic shapes, iconic designs, you know, we see it's a logo. We see it on the statue repeatedly. So, of course, taking different aspects of that symbolism, of his symbolism and the statue, I can then just put a few shapes and colors together to communicate who it is and hopefully what he stands for, and to celebrate his life in this painting. So for me, you know, coming back to simplicity and being able to represent icons or different stories or perspectives can be just as, I guess, free-flowing than worrying about it being too complex. And there's nothing wrong with going into very complex imagery. I think that's just how I like to communicate. Simple, easy to digest, easy on the eyes, something that when you look at it, I hope it brings joy and that peace of mind that I like to create from. All right, so for me, there's two different ways that I would like to portray or share simplicity. And the first one is coming back from, or in the realm of material items and ambition and stuff and clutter. We go throughout our lives wanting more usually. There's not always, a lot of times, especially for me, growing up, I wanted more clothes or more skateboards or more, I don't know, Yu-Gi-Oh cards, Pokemon cards, whatever it was. And now that I'm an adult, I want more travel. I want the house. I want all these things that I think I need. I want this stuff to fill my house the amount of boxes from Amazon that shows up is kind of crazy sometimes, and it's just stuff that starts to collect. And my environment is very important to me in my creative process. And a cluttered environment for me usually gives me anxiety when I walk in. I'm like, oh no, there's a mess. It's hard for me to get right into the flow of things. And so I like to try my best to keep things clean, remove clutter every so often, and do that cleansing so that I can walk in and create freely and not have to worry about a few tasks that I need to take care of around the studio being cluttered. Um, and the concept of wanting more and more and more, I had a pretty recent experience where the first 5 years of my career, I'm about at my five years of what I've been doing art full time, murals, freelance design, and original paintings, and then I'll do some merchandise, clothing and whatnot. And I always was just looking for more. I was never really enjoying the moment, because when the moment came and it was there and it was executed and completed, I was already on to the next one because I wanted more, where I couldn't sit and just congratulate myself or be stoked on the project that I just finished. So it's just on to the next, on to the next. I would talk to my mentors and like ask them questions and be like, well, what is this, the secrets to the universe when it comes to art business, you know, and expecting the perfect answer, but it was never enough, and it just came back to the basics, you know. It's like, oh, I already kind of thought that, you know, I already knew that, I already felt that, but inside I just felt like I wanted more. And recently I had an experience where I did a self-inventory, and I went through everything and realized that, you know, I don't need the house right now. I don't need the luxury goods. I don't need all the money in the world right now. Although I'd love it, you know, there's never a bad thing. And I have dipped my toes into some luxury shopping in the past, and realized real quickly that, you know, what am I trying to prove? You know, like I skate, I paint, I'm a surfer. I'm not really in this luxury designer brand world. I just go back to my basics, and I realized that it didn't make me happy to have those things right away. It was cool to look through the window and just see like, oh, this is cool. You know, people live like this, and it always just came back to realizing that I just want now more of what I already have, and more time with what I already have, more time with my family, more time to pursue my art. You know, I always thought I needed more clients, I needed more jobs, I needed more opportunities, always looking for that opportunity. And I was always just chasing it, you know, I was chasing things. So bringing it back to simplicity, I realized that, you know, how I determine wealth is my experiences and the memories that I create doing more of what I already love, more surfing. So I went back, had that self-inventory, and I surf more. I've given myself a lot more time to surf, to hang out with my family, and to live life. And I've started to notice that my creativity got richer. It got full again. I was creating from a place of wholeness because I was grateful for what I was, you know, for what I already had. And that gratitude prepared me to have that sense of peace of mind when I create. So I'm creating from wholeness. I've been able to do a lot of really great work and tap into new perspectives and ideas that I'm really excited to start working on, because this is a recent change. And then the second way I want to describe simplicity is um, uh, there's a mental war that we have going on usually in our head, a little mental battle where our minds get cluttered, you know, like I mentioned with consuming content. So much content, it gets real fuzzy up here sometimes. And for me, just some of the simple solutions, just like breathing it out, you know, to clear a lot of the stress or anxiety of the day, all that built up tension from what you consume. I usually just breathe on my way here, overthinking about the talk, you know, on my drive. What should I say? What should I do? I had to just breathe it out and remember, hey, you know, you've prepared. You'll go up and share what you want to share, and that really calmed everything down. So something just as simple as breathing can really make a difference. There's a lot of noise. Like I said, the world is very complex these days. We have just one thing after another when it comes to technology. Everything is starting to be, you know, a lot of different viewpoints. So how do we navigate in this modern world? You know, when there's so much noise, so many opinions, where does a young artist or youth go to find themselves? You know, when there's so many influences, and it's just going back into yourself and thinking about what you love the most. And meditation has been so good for me, is, you know, being able to see things from a different perspective. You know, take that simple step to step back, clear out all that mental clutter, and create from wholeness. So some of the ways to combat that, all the information that we are receiving, is, for me, sometimes simply just taking a drive or washing the dishes. You know, sometimes I would think getting out of creative rut means going to a museum or finding some type of crazy inspiration, where oftentimes my best ideas come from my drives to town, you know, an hour drive, or in the shower, or washing dishes. I think usually it has to be more complex than that, when it really doesn't have to be. So these different ways of seeing simplicity, whether it's, you know, wealth and how we value wealth, whether it's in material items or experiences in life that we cherish forever, or if it's simply, you know, taking time to breathe and clear your mind and declutter so that you can create from a space. You know, simplicity creates space for for your brain to think clearly. And so that's a lot of my message today, is that if we can get back to the basics, and in the times where, you know, life seems stressful and cluttered, I think we could really find what we're trying to communicate. We can see different parts of our lives that we need to adjust. We can be a little bit more self-aware with our health, our mental health, those around us, and be able to just continue, you know, living life to the fullest without having to put so many expectations on ourselves with what we think we might need. So I always want to make sure that I'm creating from this peace and this wholeness, and simplicity has been a big part of getting me there. So those are my thoughts, and thank you for being here. And yeah.